friends ask these questions every day. I did too, and I learned. My wife, Ginny, developed dementia. I didn't know what to do or what was coming next. I'm Kevin Jameson, volunteer and president of the Dementia Society of America. I'm excited to offer you a free guide to understanding dementia. It's filled with facts about dementia, care planning, how doctors can help, and ways to keep your brain as healthy as possible. The Dementia Society of America is a national nonprofit, and we're ready to answer your questions. You want to live life to the fullest. I know that. Ginny did too, and I'm confident that we can help. Get your copy of the guide. Go to 1-800-DEMENTIA.org or call 1-800-DEMENTIA. Thank you.
Welcome to Truth Talk Live.
All right, let's talk.
The truth is, I can't hide it, I can't hold it no more.
A daily program powered by the Truth Network.
This is kind of a great thing, and I'll tell you why.
Where pop culture, current events, and theology all come together.
Speak
Your mind.
And now, here's today's Truth Talk Live host.
It's a celebration of life today on Truth Talk Live, and the question of the day is, how did your spouse handle the birth pains? Again, it was a celebration of life because Tammy, for those who know, I'm Robbie Dilmore, and my wife Tammy and I had our 8th grandchild actually this morning at about 10:53. Marjorie Stewart was born. And very exciting. But of course, as we were going through that with the other family, et cetera, Tammy just constantly reminded everyone of how I handled the original 3 that we had. And so as I was thinking about what an awesome topic it is, birth pains, right? As obviously the whole earth is in that. And I don't know how your spouse, I'm hoping that a lot of you experienced, childbirth with your spouse.
They were better.
But what I did notice is that everybody that told the story had some way that they related to how their spouse handled that particular situation. And so, I brought, this is the first ever time that I can remember. Maybe Tammy's been on with me once or twice before. So if you're on Facebook Live or you're on YouTube or whatever watching, I'm going to put up a picture of Marjorie here in a second so you can see that. But meanwhile, and Mariah. So I got Tammy to tell my part of the, in other words, I don't think I could tell it with the same flavor that Tammy can tell it. and so Tammy, what was it like to have a baby with Robbie Dilmore in the delivery room?
It is the worst thing ever. Because I'm laying there dying and he's like, oh, here comes a big contraction. Oh, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. Big contraction.
Yeah. And then, so you haven't ever reminded me of that happened, right?
No, for 35 years, I've reminded you, all 3 children.
So I know you got a story and we would love to hear yours. Exactly. What was that like? All in good fun, because the idea is birth pains. We're going to talk about what the Bible has to say about birth pains. I would love your comments on what the Bible has to say about birth pains. It is a celebration of life. And so I'm digging into the Kingdom Pursuits Prize Vault. And so today, for the first 3 callers, we're going to give you, we got some special books. One of those is about mourning. I'm trying to think of the name of that. The title of that book, Nick, is
Hope in the Morning.
Hope in the Morning. There you go. We got copies of that. Good job, Tammy. So what's your recollection of birth pains? 866-348-7884, 866-344-TRUTH. Now, as you might imagine, there's another side to this story, okay? That we have Tammy's side of the story, but now we're going to hear.
But you didn't have a baby.
That's true. That's true. But for all you husbands out there, like I remember, it's a whole lot easier to be the patient than it is to be the spouse of the patient. And Tammy's experienced that a lot because, right, when I was going through cancer, do you think I had it easier laying in the bed being the patient, or you had it worse being the, right?
You had it easier.
Right. And then when I fell out of the tree?
You had it easier.
Okay. And when I had the brain abscess?
You had it easier.
Okay.
And you're lucky we're still married.
So the point of all that is now when you're having those labor pains, right, and you're the husband, this is not an easy thing to go through. And what had happened actually is our oldest child, which is Robbie, the third, our son, his umbilical cord was wrapped around his leg. And so, here you are, a young father. I guess I was 33 years old at the time. Yeah. And, we go in for what we thought was a checkup, and they're listening to the heartbeat, and all of a sudden the heart stops. And they're like, oh, she's having a contraction and the heart stopping. Oh my goodness, his umbilical cord must be wrapped around his leg. So that began a process of them inducing her labor, and they were worried that, oh my gosh, we're going to have to do emergency C-section and this, and this. And so every time she would begin to have a contraction, it terrified me because I thought it was going to kill the baby. But of course,
but you could have kept that to yourself. And you should have.
I know you got a story. 866-348-7884. This has not been resolved for 36 years. And I told her many times that when we get to heaven, Jesus is going to resolve it for us. Anyway, we've got Buxman. He is in Ohio. He has a story. I'm not surprised. Buxman, you're on Truth Talk Live.
Reporting for duty, Gilmore family. It's wonderful to hear your voice, Miss Tammy. This is awesome. I talked to your husband quite a little bit. We go way back, but it's wonderful hearing your voice, ma'am.
Thank you.
So
here's my story. Here's my story, Robbie. Wow. And I just heard yours. This is frightening. I guess the Lord wants to test us fathers, because I had a similar situation with our firstborn, Luke. Amber, finally, Luke was out, but all of a sudden, our doctor, our OB goes, we need a nurse in here right now. And my heart dropped, Gilmore's Truth Talk Live.
Oh, yeah.
And my little boy just turned really, really purple. And come to find out, he was not crying. Come to find out, guys, he had something lodged in his little tiny throat. Mm-hmm. And I freaked out, Miss Tammy. And obviously Amber was, mom. She didn't know what was going on. But they called the nurse in. They cleaned out my little boy's throat. And he started crying. And oh my gosh, Dad started crying.
I'm sure.
So that's what happened with our firstborn. Yeah, Stillmores. But our second, my daughter, it was great, no problems. They both had great weight, and so I was a mess. Gilmore family, Truth Talk Live. It was just very frightening. But praise God, they're both doing really well.
Speaking of being a mess, actually, Buxman, that today I was a mess because my daughter chose to name her child, right, that was born today, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, by the way, proud grandfather. She chose to name it after my mother. And it just so happens that Mariah is almost a spitting image of my mother. My mother passed away in 2016, which was her first grandparent to pass away. And so she named the child Marjorie Ruth, which my mother's name was Marjorie Ann, but just to get the Marjorie. So I'm standing there holding this baby, seeing my mother. I'm crying just thinking about it.
That is amazing, Robbie. God is so good, brother.
He is. So we got to go. We got to go to a break, though. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Truth Talk Live.
Each word is a testimony.
A million miles of my mistakes, so couldn't keep your love away. However far away I am from home, that's how far your love will go.
And his word is always true on the Truth Network.
Over the years, you've brought them into your home. You were prescribed opioids after the C-section, when Dad injured his back, when your basketball star tore his ACL. Opioids helped with the pain, and you held on to them just in case. But did you know holding on to unused opioids puts your family at risk? Opioids are powerful pain-reducing prescription medicines, but most people who are prescribed opioids don't finish their prescriptions. So millions of unused opioids are sitting in homes across the country. And tragically, More than 100 Americans die every day from overdoses involving opioids. What can you do to protect your family? Remove the risk of unused opioids from your home. Pills, patches, or syrups in drawers, purses, and cabinets, anywhere they might be hiding. To find out how to dispose of them properly, visit www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
I spent a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain and mud. In '95, I helped tow your moving trailer. And in '09, it was sparks from me, your chains, dragging behind your truck that accidentally started a wildfire.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfire.
Here's a Renewing Your Mind Minute with Dr. R.C. Sproul.
The Reformed faith teaches the doctrine not only of election, but of unconditional election, meaning that the electing grace that God gives to those whom he saves is not based upon some condition that he sees in them, but it is sovereignly based in the good pleasure of God's will. And even though he assigns the mediating necessity of faith, what he does is that he acts to meet the condition for his own people. God makes the condition, but he meets the condition graciously to those who are the objects of his electing grace.
For today's special offer, visit renewingyourmind.org.
Anyone who has ever been a teacher knows that teaching others is the best way to become confident about what you believe. When you teach others, you teach yourself. When you convince others, you convince yourself. When you persuade others, you become persuaded yourself. The most confident, mature Christians I know are those who are involved in building up others in the faith. They teach Sunday school or a Bible study, or lead a small group, or are involved in evangelism or discipling their own children. The best way to remain strong in your faith is to make others strong with what you believe. This is David Jeremiah, encouraging you to get on the road to new life. Discover God's blessings on teachers on Route 66.
Route 66, driving the word home. Log on to Route66Life.com. Start your journey home today.
This is John MacArthur. Join me for today's Portraits of Grace. The history book I read asked this question: how many peace treaties have been broken throughout history? The answer? All of them. That's because true peace always eludes wicked man. But we can show the world that Jesus is the true peacemaker if we live together in peace and loving harmony as Christians. Where does that peace come from? Largely from selflessness, which is a primary characteristic of Christian love, isn't it? The Bible says, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, let each of you regard one another as more important than himself. Humble ourselves. Focus on the needs of others. That's what the Bible is saying. When we do that, we'll show harmony and unity to the world. This is John MacArthur, encouraging you to live as Portraits of Grace.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. Today, what was your birthing experience as a spouse? Or maybe you're the one in labor and you remember your husband did something
horrible.
866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. The call in and share your story. We got Buxman still in Ohio. You're still with us?
I am still here, Dillmore.
And so you had two children?
I did. And watch this, you guys. My son will be 18 years old in September. My daughter just turned 16 in April. So it just feels like just a week ago is when that happened, Bobby and Tammy.
So I'm just curious, so if your wife were in this conversation, she'll go, "Oh, I never forget." What is it that you've heard about for 18 years.
Right?
Yeah, what was that?
I would say probably how they've turned into young men and women.
Oh,
I'm really amazed with my son. I mean,
she wouldn't remind you of how you went out and got a cheeseburger and you were.
Oh no. And now, if you're talking about the actual birthdays, guys,
Yeah.
I do remember when my son was born. Our doctor, he was funny. He was a cowboy. He would wear cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And he wore cowboy boots and a cowboy hat in the delivery room, Truth Talk Live. I am not kidding you. We heard this clunk, 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 clunk on the way down as he was coming in to deliver my son, our son. Anyway, I remember him saying, do you want to cut the cord? And I'm a man's man, you guys. I said, I'll cut it with my teeth.
Oh, wow.
and he just laughed, you guys, because that's just the kind of guy he was. He was kind of a true grit kind of guy. I loved him. His name was Dr. Banis. I'll never forget it, Dr. Banis. I don't think he's in practice anymore, but he was John Wayne.
Oh,
and
apparently.
I said, I'll cut it with my teeth. And he just laughed and let me snip it with the little scissors. But it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome.
Well, thank you as always, my friend. I so appreciate your stories, and you're joining us today. So
I'm always glad to contribute to Truth Talk Live. And once again, it's very nice meeting you, Miss Tammy.
You too.
Thank you, Buxman. God bless.
Bye-bye.
So, what's your story? 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. And I don't know if you've ever made the connection between birth pains, how they come in waves, right? And they come in waves in order to, get that thinning process so that the baby can come, so that new life would come into the equation. And I don't know if your life's like mine, but, a lot of things, as we talked about earlier, as Tammy talked about, when I had cancer, when I got crushed between the Jeep, all that came in waves because there was a certain thinning of, my life that needed to happen before, the real Robbie could begin to step forth. And so a lot of our suffering, interestingly, has to do with our own, rebirth experience, or as we're going through our sanctification process. So I don't want to be remiss because we need your story. 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. It's so much fun to talk about these and to hear them. 866-348-7884, because as we were talking about, other family are with, they had some stories, and I know that you've got one to share. And so, Tammy, since I have you right here, what else do you remember about how wonderful I was, during this process?
You were horrible. The entire time.
Other than mentioning what else got to you?
Oh, you're having a really big contraction. It's gonna hurt.
That's you pointed that out. I don't remember anything else that's coming to mind, but we would love, again, to your story as you think about that. The suffering, and when in James it says, consider it pure joy when you face all these birth pains of all sorts of different kinds, because really think about it, I clearly wouldn't be on the radio today and so many other things had I not experienced those birth pains and gone through some of the things that I had an opportunity to go through. And so, when you see that come as waves, well, as I was studying the idea of Peter walking on the water, I clearly got the idea of these waves that were hitting him that caused him to doubt. But if he hadn't doubted, then he never would have gone below the waves, and Jesus would have never reached down and caught him. And so as a result of, the birth pains that have hit me, the waves that have hit me, that has caused my faith to waver or whatever, that's where Jesus picks you up and it begins to build that new life. But Nick himself, my very producer, you've got a little story yourself, right, Nick?
Yeah, I do. So this is something that my mom, she's told me for 26 years of my life, for 26 years. So, I was born on November 26th, and my mom, she went through 22 hours of labor and contractions. And she tells me this, like, on my birthday every year. She tells me how I was almost a C-section baby. And, and she told me that my shoulder or my collarbone, it got caught on her pelvis.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so, it got caught on her pelvis, but they took me into the INCU
Right. I see.
Yeah, for the babies, right? And so what she told me was that once they took me in there and I heard the knives and they're about to cut, I was like, I'm gonna go the right way.
Here.
I'm gonna go the right way. And so she always reminds me that on my birthday. So that's something that I always remember.
It's coming this November, the 26th.
Yeah.
It'll be back. And so we need your story. I know you got one. 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. Or maybe, you've thought about the waves before and how things come in waves in order to create enough stretching of your faith in order to, get to the next level, whatever that may feel like. Again, I would love to hear yours or your spouse's or whatever it is that comes to mind as you think about this process. 866, the number to call in, 866-348-7884 is, again, we talked about, we got 3 of these books that we're going to give away, Hope in the Morning, and we've already given away 1. So we have 2 more to go. But in order for that to happen, we got 1 caller calling in, but we need your call, 866-348-7884. And, as I was looking at this idea of waves, I began to look at that in Hebrew. And so we're going to get to that in a second, but we got Ed in Roanoke. And so Ed, you're on Truth Talk Live. Share us what you got going on there.
Hey, Robbie, how you doing today?
I am having fun. I just had my next grandbaby, so I'm really having fun.
Well, you're really gonna have fun when you hear my story.
Oh, good. I love that.
Because I was a young, naive, stupid, if I could say that.
I resemble that remark.
My wife, both her births were C-sections, and so we were in the hospital. I was doing some research, pre-birth research.
Ed, we got to go to a break, so we got to hear about this because we're dying to. Can you hold on for a minute for us?
Sure thing.
It's actually going to be probably about 4 minutes, but when we come back, we're going to hear Ed. We're also going to hear, more on this whole idea of what this looks like in Hebrew. So stay tuned. A lot more Truth Talk Live coming.
Truth Talk Live.
Graduations, weddings, and funerals are upon us, and so are some of the greatest missions opportunities this time of year.
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus.
Whether it's a mourning of a loss, celebration of life, celebration of your graduate, or a big time wedding like my niece who got married recently. Remember, if you're a believer, these are great opportunities to share the gospel, and these are people you may never see again. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see them again one day in heaven? Seize the moment. Ask someone, how is your soul? How are you doing spiritually? How is it with you and Jesus? Not just how are you doing, but how are you really doing? It's time to go on a missions trip, and that missions trip is right in front of you at this great time of year.
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus. Available now in bookstores. Learn more at lastwordsofjesus.com.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the Lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Oh, praise my soul. God really loves us.
Yes, God really loves us. But for a lot of people, our attachment to the past outweighs our commitment to the future. We have to stop looking back and start looking forward. The Truth Network encourages you to forget the past, face it, and move on.
The Truth Network. Another reason to listen.
It always uplifts you. It just takes you to another level.
Thanks for listening to the Truth Network.
I'm Jonathan McKee, and you're listening to Plugged In on the Truth Network. Jenna donates money to organizations to combat homelessness, so she feels she's doing enough. But as she prays over her lunch, she finds herself face to face with God himself. He tells her, I know you were just asking for a blessing and getting ready to eat, but since you were talking to me, I decided to talk back. Destination Heaven is Great American PureFlix's next family-friendly Christian show. Each episode focuses on a different character learning a different biblical moral. A corrupt atheist car salesman, a boy whose parents are contemplating divorce, a girl who must choose which college to attend. In each encounter, God teaches these people a little bit about what it means to follow him.
Since you were talking to me, I decided to talk back.
As you might expect for PureFlix, there's little content here that'll cause concern. Read the whole review at pluggedin.com/radio. I'm Jonathan McKee with Focus on the Family's Plugged In.
When you are in Christ Jesus, the storms of life may blow and howl all around you from every side, but you are safe where? In Christ Jesus. The waters of your circumstances may rise to a dangerous level, but it can never drown those who are in Christ Jesus.
Teacher on Leading the Way, Dr. Michael Youssef.
We may be experiencing the depth of Hades in this life, but only to witness for our faith in Jesus. Like Jesus, we will be in glory and glorified in Jesus to reign and rule with Jesus.
Ready to start your faith journey with Jesus? You can visit ltw.org/Jesus.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. Today, how did your spouse handle those birth pains? That's the question. I would love to hear your story. I would. So I don't feel all alone out there. 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. We got Ed in Roanoke. He was fixing to share his experience with his wife. As it sounded like she had 2 C-sections, right, Ed?
Yeah, and both were a little comical, I think. The first one, she was getting ready to go into labor, and then the doctor says, "You know what? We need to get her into the hospital in the surgery because we're gonna have to perform a C-section."
Mm.
So I had been doing some research. You had the CIRC and anti-CIRC people, and and I was just wondering, okay, this is gonna be done. My first question to the doctor is, Doc, are you performing the circumcision? And then my very next question was, do you have much experience in this? Are you good at it? And the doctor looks at me and he says, "Young man, your wife is getting ready to go into major surgery. I think you should consider other things at the moment." And then the baby's born, of course, and I'm behind the curtain. I'm not cutting anything. I'm not cutting no umbilical cord.
Right.
But so we got some friends there with us, and they're greeting us, and we're out there with the baby, and then and the next experience, the nurse comes out, and we called her Attila the Hun because she says, "Well, whenever the paparazzi gets done with taking pictures, I'll get the baby in there to clean it up."
Oh.
And we were like, "Oh my goodness, this is what kind of what?"
The paparazzi.
Oh gosh.
She was just not friendly. And then my second boy, he was born on the mission field.
Wow.
And the hospital we had probably the number one doctor in the country of Thailand because he was on TV and he would teach other doctors and vitro and all this other stuff. Well, we had probably the number one doctor in Thailand performing the operation, of course, another C-section. And my wife was a photographer. So, we're sitting in there and the doctors, 2 doctors operating. And the one doctor, they're speaking Thai, of course, but they're having a conversation back and forth. The one doctor says, "Hey, I'm getting ready to take a trip to Japan. what camera do you suggest I take? My wife is just, what model should I buy? And my wife's just sitting there ready to laugh, you know. And then that baby's born, and my first comment when he came out was, "Oh, we just gave birth to Bigfoot," because he was hairy. He had hair. He had hair up and down his back. I was like, "That's unbelievable. He's really hairy."
Your wife probably remembered that, didn't she?
Oh yeah, we had a great time.
And so, what was that child's name?
Oh, the first one was Josiah, and the second one was Micah Jasper.
Oh, pretty.
And so, did Micah remain hairy, or did he?
No, he did not at all. He's a 16-year-old, 106-pound skinny thing.
Yeah, you could have thrown a little Esau name in on him, you know, since he was. So you could give him that story. Well, Ed, I love it. That's so wonderful. I appreciate you sharing those. I will forever remember all, especially the Bigfoot part. So, thank you, my friend. You have a great weekend. Oh, it was so awesome. God bless you. You're right. I did love them. Thank you. So what's your story? I know you got one in there, and you know that, or maybe, you know, what would your spouse say if you're one of those husbands out there like me? If we had her on the phone, you know, what might she say? Like Tammy is recalling other things that she really enjoyed about how, you know, I had gone to these Lamaze classes, so I thought I was being hauled at, you know, I'd learned, you know, I'm a good student, I think, and I was trying to learn all these wonderful techniques. And so, Tammy, what else did you really enjoy about how I learned all that stuff in Lamaze class?
You kept rubbing my leg, and it was driving me crazy. And I'm like, don't touch me. But you kept on, but you finally stopped.
So, you know, I just have to relate this because, you know, it wasn't but a few hours ago, our daughter Mariah was experiencing sort of what I would call Tammy pains. And her mother went to kiss her on the head. What happened, Tammy?
Oh, I went to kiss her on the head. She said, "You're really making me mad."
Her favorite word is annoying.
Annoying. You're so annoying. You're so annoying.
And I couldn't relate, you know, back to many times where, you know, this is just part of the deal. So I know if your husband out there, you probably got some recollection of this. 866-348-7884 is the number to call in and share. We would love to hear it, because here's another part of what's going on, right? That you are this, you know, how my daughter was, you know, she was actually in labor, Nick, for 44 hours. So believe me, yesterday afternoon when the kissing on the forehead incident took place, she'd had about all of, you know, but interestingly, when we saw her this morning at 10:53 with that baby in her arms, which I've showed many pictures of on Facebook, you know, with people that were looking, she couldn't be more, I've never seen a bigger smile on her face. And even at her wedding, I don't know that she was ever been happier than the look on her face holding that baby.
But I did not have the nerve to kiss her on her forehead.
But another little cool aspect of this, while you're getting up the courage to call in at 866-34-TRUTH. And by the way, I haven't got to the Hebrew part of waves yet. Oh, somebody did get to her. Is that that, oh man, I can't believe I forgot what I was going to say. As we were waiting, man, it'll come back to me. So we'll get to the Hebrew part of what's going on there.
Okay.
All right. So if you know me well, I love to look at words. And so I looked at the word waves in Hebrew, and it related to the word break, because the idea of breakers, but I always thought of breakers as the water is breaking over the top, you know, of the wave. But actually the word break, as far as the Hebrew of that, is the same word that when they would break up their idols. In other words, when they broke up an Asherah pole, or when they broke up a Baal statue or whatever, that is the word that they would use that later became the root of the word waves. And so when you think about it, whether it's, you know, yourself that is getting broken up or what it may be, then obviously, you know, that's kind of what happens with us as we get to be totally in Christ. So we got Mike and his wife Tammy. Oh, I can hardly wait. I did not know Mike and his in Dayton, Ohio. So Mike and Tammy, you're on Truth Talk Live. I love your name, Tammy.
Yeah, she's not going to talk. She tells me I'm a nutcase because we're calling in all the time, but I'm trying to get her to speak. Say hi, Tammy.
Hello.
Hi, Tammy. Tammy, meet Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
She's not going to do it.
Well, you think it was easy to get my wife Tammy to? I'm telling you, but she finally, because she's still so mad about the whole thing that it's all coming back to her. So, Tammy, we want to hear from you. Like, what did we've been know about Mike, but we want to know what Mike did while you were going through this very difficult, trying time.
Well,
on the first one?
On the
yes,
first
on the
go
first
ahead.
one. Let Tammy go. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was very young, so he was telling me that don't be mad at me when you give birth. he was telling, he didn't want me to be mad at him or get upset with him because I was going through pain, and so he didn't want me to get upset.
I don't remember that, but that's funny. But I remember when the baby was born that it came out, and she had a very long labor, and it was very long. And Michael came out, and he had a cone head, and I kept rubbing his head and keeping and putting that little bonnet on his head, and she made fun of me forever about that. You know, it was.
Yeah, but I didn't know you had a cone head.
Yeah, but I did. It was big. It was like an ice cream cone, you know. And I kept rubbing it down, and the nurse kept telling me, you know, it's going to go away. It's going to be fine, you know. And now we have grandkids, and we are. I never thought I would be a grandfather. I just didn't think it was going to be, you know, oh, I'm going to be so excited. And when I had grandkids, I am so excited and I'm so joyful to be around them. You know, it's so, and so is my wife. Love to watch them, you know, and love to be and share God with them. You know, it's just awesome.
And so one of the secrets of grandkids is, I got to know this, Tammy, what do your grandkids call you?
Well, they don't really speak that good yet, so I want them to call me Nana.
Nana?
She wants them,
Nana, yeah.
She wants them to call her Nana, yeah.
And so what are you hoping for, Mike?
I just want them to call me Grandpa. You know, I mean, I don't want nothing fancy. If that was your question.
That was my question, and I was totally good with Grandpa, but what I ended up with, Pops.
Oh, what?
Pops. My oldest grandchild, Lila, she calls me, oh, Pops. However that all works. You guys hang on for us. And you got some other folks out there that need to call in. 866-348-7884. What was your birthing story? Call us. We'll be right back.
Truth Talk Live.
Here are the contest rules for the Truth Network. Prizes won are not transferable, redeemable for cash, or exchangeable for any other prize. All prizes must be redeemed from the station within 30 days of winning. Only one prize per household from any station of Truth Broadcasting within any 30-day period. The rest of our contest rules are listed under the About Us link at our website, truthnetwork.com. Thanks for playing and listening to the Truth Network.
My name is Judy Teeter, and I'm the mother of 3 boys. My youngest, Joe, was a great kid. He loved sports, music, and his youth group. One day, Joe asked me to drive him to an after-school event, which was about a mile from our home. I was driving through a green light when a car in cross traffic ran a red light and drove right into the side of our car, killing Joe. The driver was talking on her phone, so she never even saw the red light. She was so absorbed in her phone call. Before the crash, I didn't realize just talking on a cell phone while driving was so dangerous. Now it's something I think about every day. According to the National Safety Council, about 1 in 4 car crashes involves a cell phone. Hands-free is no safer. When you're behind the wheel, put away your phone. For Joe and for the thousands of needless deaths every year. Remember, there is no safe way to talk on a cell phone while driving. Find out more at nsc.org/callskill.
if you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba, please be done. Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And now, your Pathway Minute with Dr. Robert Jeffress.
George Barna, who regularly surveys the attitudes of Americans, discovered a few years ago in a survey among Christians that 68% of Christian adults no longer believe in absolute truth. They do not believe there are truths that apply to everyone, regardless of their religion or their culture. The fact that so many people, even Christians, have rejected this notion of absolute truth explains why it is people, even Christians, bristle when you make statements like, Jesus Christ is the only way to God, every other religion is wrong. Or abortion is tantamount to murder. Or America was founded as a uniquely Christian nation.
Pathway Minute is produced by Pathway to Victory. To access the Bible teaching of Dr. Robert Jeffress, go to ptv.org.
Nothing is as inevitable as change.
The music that may be popular today may be laughed at in 10 years. The fashions today may be out of date next summer. The scientific data, which may be termed accurate today, may be discarded in a few years and declared obsolete.
Some other things, says Billy Graham, don't change.
Man grapples with the same spiritual problems in every generation. His inner tensions, inherent evil, loneliness, his anxieties, fears, guilt, his doubts are the same.
And the answer to those never-changing problems is also never-changing.
Christ can give you the victory over this present world. Come to Christ. Make him the Lord and Master of your life. This is the only certain foundation in a rapidly changing world that threatens to destroy everything we've ever known.
Discover how you can have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Go to findpeacewithgod.net. That's findpeacewithgod.net. We're the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association.
This is a Love Language Minute. Here's Dr. Gary Chapman on giving up on a relationship.
So when it seems like you just can't endure any longer in a relationship that you've been struggling with, and it seems like you're at the point where you're ready to give up on that relationship, what do? Number one, we recognize that Satan's opposition is normal. Satan is involved in that process, and it's normal for him to be involved. Secondly, you keep reaching out to spend time with that person. You keep reaching out to spend time with that person. Now, let me put in a parenthesis because I don't want you to go away with the wrong impression. Yes, you cannot make people have a relationship with you. And yes, sometimes relationships break up, but we keep reaching out for them. We pray for them, and we're ready when they come back. We're ready to restore and resume that relationship.
For more, go to 5lovelanguages.com.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. What a special show we have today for you. We're talking about what was your birthing story, and you may not, in fact, I can only remember maybe a handful of times, maybe 2 times since I've been on the air for some 18 years that Tammy actually joined me. So not only do I have my wife Tammy with me, we have Mike and his wife Tammy with us. And so, guys, as you're listening, Tammy, and as my Tammy here is listening, when you think about it, and I saw this today in such a miraculous way that my daughter Mariah and her husband Dee, they came into the hospital on Tuesday as, you know, sort of a newly married couple. But when they leave the hospital tomorrow or whenever they get out with their new baby, they are a family. And we saw that family, right, in a very beautiful way as we were leaving the hospital this afternoon. And now you guys have seen that with yours. And so I'm you know, as you guys have had grandkids, like just the miracle of, like, if you think about it, Mike, when you left with that first baby, that you guys you know, it was just started out the two of you, and the next thing you know, it was the three of you. And now you got however many. And, you know, Tammy and I have 8 grandchildren plus, you know, 3 extra in-laws, bonus kids. And
Wow.
when we took this picture, both our daughters got married this year. And so, you know, Mariah got married last June 17th. And so she had this baby today. It was pretty awesome that God worked quickly in that particular situation. But when I looked at those pictures, like, oh my goodness, it just started out me and Tammy. But now look what God's done. I mean, we stand there and this whole tribe, you know, it's like amazing. So in all that, we know that Mike did something right.
I married the right girl.
There you go. Me too.
So did you, Robbie.
And so, and we know that Robbie it could have happened that Robbie did something right. So I want you to think hard, Tammy's, and feel free to either one of you go. Was there anything that during this labor and birthing process that you feel like your husband did right? That he would tell other husbands, like, take a lesson from Mike. This is what he may have had his issues, but he did this right. What I'm challenging my wife here to find.
I mean, the second time he was there, and he was good, and he helped me. So, I mean, at least he was there to help me.
He cared too, right? He cared deeply.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, there's something to be said for that, and
yeah,
a lot of it, and you know, hey, it was a process that, you know, I never want to forget it, in spite of whatever happened. So Tammy, you've heard. Yes. What do you think? I'm asking my Tammy now.
You know, what is well, when they put the baby in my arms for the first time, I'm saying, oh my gosh, look at all this responsibility I have, you know, and you know, raising him, getting to know God, you know, that was in my thoughts. And you know, my gosh, what a responsibility that we have. And it wasn't easy over the years, you know. Now my son's 30 years old and 32, and my wife corrected me. You know, they have 2 stepdaughters.
Yeah, believe me, I've been corrected 5 times during the break. But you know what they say: little kids, little problems; big kids, big problems. Right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. We don't want to stop Tammy. She could be on a roll. She's trying to find something I did. Was there anything I did?
I think you might have got a washcloth wet for me and put on my forehead.
There you go.
And then you said, here comes another contraction.
It's going to be a big one.
Yeah, he rubs my back.
I rubbed her back.
Oh, way to go, Mike.
Yeah,
tell Tammy now you got
rub my back.
now I'm getting the dirty look.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did something like.
All right, you want in on the fun, you got to call us 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. Tammy, I'm talking about Mike's Tammy right this second, but I'm actually very proud of both Tammys, right? Because it's not easy to get on the radio, and it's nerve-wracking. But I'm so grateful because, you know, as people are listening, I know everyone's relating, right? That it's just, especially that first child, you didn't have any idea what that was going to be like. It's one thing to go to a Lamaze class where you sit there for an hour and find out about it. It's another thing to sit there in the throes of that monitor going boop, 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 and here comes a track, all that stuff. And I'm watching that number go 10, 15, 20. And even when my daughter was in there just a few hours ago, guess what I was tempted to say?
But I hit him on the leg and I said, don't do it.
Oh my God. It's the hardest thing that any women would go through.
Yes.
866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. Come on, you got it. And you got just a minute to get it in here. But when you really think about it, like the miracle of what's going to happen to all of us, right? As those waves continue to hit us, and the pains that's going through that. And I even think raising kids is one of those things that comes in waves of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the prodigal father. You know, he understood all that. And this coming up a Father's Day, obviously on Sunday, that I can assure you, whether your mother or father, you have felt like their original birth pains. You know, I did not have any. I've had kidney stones, I've had other pain, but I can tell you the emotional pain of watching your children suffer through things is really, really, really difficult. You know, whether they've suffered through, you know, some kind of addiction or some kind of a divorce or whatever it is that they have had to suffer through. Believe me, you know, as a parent, now just think of all that suffering. And I often think that as Jesus hung there on the cross, and I bet you guys would agree with me, that man, he was facing all of that for all of us.
Yeah.
And talk about big kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a big kid, whatever. I mean, you know, he has seen not only the suffering that you had, but think how we made our parents suffer, right? Your mom, Mike, I can't imagine. How big a baby were you?
I don't know. I think I think it was 8 when my wife was.
Just think,
Well,
man.
I had 8-pound babies.
Tammy had 8-pound babies.
8, 9.
That's why they had cone
6
head.
and a half.
And Tammy, how big was Mariah? She was 8.
Mariah was 8, 9 and a half.
Yeah, see, my son was 8, 9. That's hard. That was a hard
painful.
one.
Was he the cone head?
Yeah. I had it naturally, and then I was really, put it this way, I had lots of stitches afterwards.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a challenge. It is. There's no doubt about it. Those big babies, and there's women that have 10-pound babies, maybe 11. I just, you know,
could not.
But,
I could not either.
But we all
No
put
way.
our parents, whatever, you know, through, you know, we obviously put our mother, and then, you know, let's not leave out the dads, because anybody that thinks dads don't suffer is not spent 40 hours in a labor delivery.
Hey, Robbie, my
my
daughter had 2 C-sections, and the first C-section, you know, it went pretty well, and well, not really. And then she had the second C-section, and if she didn't have the second C-section, they wouldn't have fixed some of the things that went wrong on the first C-section. So they repaired some inner things with my daughter. And, you know, that was a bless. I mean, we, you know, me and my wife were praying for my daughter. And we have 2 great, beautiful sons, and from my daughter. And it's, you know, if she didn't have a second C-section, she probably would have, you know, it would have been pretty awful. And
We had to, because she had the first one.
yeah, but thank God that, you know, she had the second C-section, and the doctors took care of everything, you know, and in her gut and all that stuff. And
that's a miracle,
you know.
And when you bring up an amazing thing that we get to pray, like I was thinking about that all night, you know, I knew that, you know, Mariah was really going through it, and we get a chance to pray for our kids. As we know, I knew she was suffering, but I also knew my daughter's heart to know that when she held that baby, you know, that she was going to be in heaven. And I can honestly say, as I imagine you were, Tammy, and again, your children, as they had their kids, I mean, to actually have that is just like one of the most amazing things to take in the process, because what God is doing, obviously, is he's making more and more people to have fellowship with him for eternity. Yes, Tammy.
One thing I wanted to say, yesterday, Mariah said, "I'm never having any more children. This is it." And then today she's holding her baby and she goes, "Oh, it wasn't too bad. I'm going to have more kids."
That's because they make it where you don't remember.
Exactly.
Isn't that a miracle that God worked that out? Like, that somehow or another, all that's forgotten, and because it's so worthwhile to have that baby and hold that precious one. And, you know, I looked at Dee, you know, her husband, and I remember how terrified I was. Like, Don't drop it. Don't. What happened?
Yeah, and he's telling me, use two hands. I'm like, I know how to hold a baby.
Well, we're almost out of time.
That's okay. You guys have been a delight, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate Tammy, you having the courage to do this, and my Tammy having the courage to do. Really, really fun, guys. And as you're out there thinking about your story, man, just, God said be fruitful and multiply in so many ways. Thanks for listening.